And listen, guys, thank you very much for joining me in a new Blimey. I'm absolutely made up to have two, I hope you don't take this the wrong way, legends, and I mean that in the best way of gaming. It's Mr. Shaun Southern and Andrew Morris. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you for joining me. I know, Shaun, you've been subjected to my humour before. It couldn't have been that bad.
Yeah.
You came back for a second to help, so it couldn't be that bad. But anyway, listen, guys, I guess thank you very much for joining me. It is an absolute pleasure to have you on to talk to. So just to kind of kick things off, I'll speak to you first, Andrew. What was your very first sort of experience of video games? When did you first become aware of this newfound kind of hobby or technology?
Well, I suppose it was the arcades first, but at home it would have been the ZX81. That was my first computer, and the games were obviously 1K and extremely primitive. And I used to type them in every time I wanted to play something. So, that in the home, at home it was a ZX81. Yeah, so going quite a way.
Well, did you ever have the 16K RAM pack, or was it always just the 1K you had?
No, I started saving up for one, and then I ended up getting the Spectrum, so I skipped the 16K RAM pack.
What about yourself, Shaun? I know you've told me before. What was your inroads into?
I think I actually borrowed a ZX81 from somewhere, but I think first I was on the Commodore PET at school. I had one of those in the. It didn't have a computer lesson then, but we had some sort of. I think it was just in one of the rooms, and we used to go after school and play on that and type things in, and just great being able to get something to do something that you'd told it.
It's funny how when you talk to it, I mean, I've got a 15-year-old daughter. I mean, I tell her that there was only one computer in our school. She can't believe it, with an Apple II, I think it was. Just seems absolutely nuts.
With a phone, a laptop, and a computer, I've got 3 on the desk. So.
Insane, eh? So, gaming-wise, obviously, when you first got your computers, I mean, starting with you, Andrew, did you start off as a gaming fan? You like to play video games, and at what point did you decide, I want to start experimenting and writing my own games or graphic design?
Well, I started pretty much straight away. I was always more interested in the creative aspect. I didn't particularly like programming. It was more a necessary evil. But in the early days,
his programming was evil as well. I've seen it.
You were basically a programmer and a designer at the start, because certainly the very first years of computers, it was more hobbyist. It wasn't really gamers. So if you were going to play games, you were sort of involved in the programming and everything else as well. That's how it was in the early years. At least that's how it was for me, anyway.
Mm-hmm. And did you start off like dabbling with graphics in the ZX81? I can't imagine you'd have much of...
Oh, I did, yeah. I loved... well, there was the built-in block graphics on the ZX81, so I was endlessly doing graph drawings and then trying to animate little bits of the drawings. I think I just about worked out how to do user-defined character graphics on the ZX81, just as I was getting rid of it. Because most games used the built-in graphics because there was so little memory, you just worked with what you had. But yeah, it was always more about the creativity. So I'd design the game, do all the graphics, and then think about the programming at the end and maybe get a few things moving around and just get bored with it.
So did you write games for your pals, or did it never get to that stage? Or
I wrote one game completely, and Shaun actually finished it for me, because I started as a programmer, never really completed anything because I started doing graphics quite early on, working with Shaun and a few of the programmers at the time, and so I never really did a complete game apart from a game that was eventually called Otherworld. Shaun finished it for me because I just lost interest, and it was published. I think it's on some website now. I let them have it, so it's sort of out there. But it was never officially published.
What was the name of it? What was that name again, Andrew?
Otherworld.
Otherworld.
What's the website? There's like a game. What is it? It's something for the Commodore 64 for unpublished games, because I had a few. I did graphics for a few games, so I've completely forgotten what it's called, but there's a website that has all these games that were never published for the Commodore 64, and I gave them a load of graphics, and I also gave them Otherworld, so they've got that and the graphics. There was a game called Epsilon that it was meant to be a little bit like a combination of Defender and Space Taxi and a few other things, and the programmer disappeared, so that was never finished. But I did most of the graphics.
Fantastic. And yourself, Shaun, were you a gamer first and foremost, or were you always the creative side of things?
Well, I've done graphics, as you've probably seen, and things, but they're awful. And most of my games were more technical things anyway, sort of making things whiz around fast. So you didn't really need to, bask in the glory of looking at anything. You're just like, oh, where's that? Shoot it, moving, chase after it, whatever.
It's funny how obviously certain people, we're all similar ages. I was just purely a gamer. I mean, I could not code for to save myself, but whereas obviously other guys, you were more interested in how games ran, etc. Hence the reason you kind of went down the sort of career path that you did. So obviously, Shaun, we know your kind of background into the game, and Mr. Chip Software. How did that come about again?
Well, I wasn't there at the start. Mr. Chip was just selling games that Andrew will probably know more than remember more than me. He bought in from somewhere and he was selling them himself, and then he started trying to get people in to write them. And we used to go on holiday to Rhyl, and he was in Llandudno, so it was very easy to get there on the train after that, knew the way. Went to see him, took some games that I'd written myself. I was selling them in the back of magazines, PC World or PC Gamer, I can't remember what it's called, Weekly, I think, something Weekly. Just little classified ads like you get in places in sort of newspapers. I'd sell them for $5 a time and posting them, sending them off, putting them on tapes. Sold probably, 100 quid worth maybe. So, see Mr. Chip.
What was your first game for Mr. Chip? Was Olympic Skier one of them, and that was one of the earliest ones, was it?
Yeah, I think I might have written the jackpot game myself, and I was selling that. And I think I'd done one called Subshot, which was just like that submarine thing where things go across and you have to move your submarine and time all the shots. I think I sold those two, maybe Olympic Skier as well myself, and of course then Mr. Chip gave him a bigger audience.
I've got to say, Olympic Skier was one of my most played games back in the day, especially the ski jump. You had to hammer the fire button and you could just fall and you'd do a forward somersault.
Well, I would play all the things in the arcade, all the track and field and everything like that, so it's similar to that, wasn't it? Sort of fast as you can.
So yourself, Andrew, I wasn't aware. Did you get stuff published? Did you work for Mr. Chip Software as well then? Yeah.
I did. Yeah, I started shortly after Shaun. It was on the YTS. I left school at 15 hours when I left school. I just stopped going and I'd started writing games. I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I started playing around with code. It was always heavily ideas and lots of graphics with a little bit of code because I hated the code. And I went to see Mr. Chip. And,
was that his name, Mr. Chip? No.
Well, it was Doug Braisby who set up Mr. Chip Software with a guy called Michelangelo Pignani, who left in the earlier years. Just as Magnetic Fields was set up, he left. So that's where Shaun and I worked, and originally I worked with a few programmers that were there because it was a bit of a hub for other 8-bit programmers. But as time went on, there was only really me and Shaun left. Everyone else just sort of.
So you didn't get together because you wanted to. It was just because of nobody else left that you just became the.
Well, we worked together from the start.
In deck the gaming world.
But everyone else just dropped out of it, didn't they? They just, I don't think they could keep up. But certainly when the Amiga arrived, almost everyone else left because it just became very professional.
Yeah. So when did you guys both leave Mr. Chip at the same time and start Magnetic Fields? How did that come about?
Oh, it was sort of one morphed into the other, really.
Right.
Yeah, Magnetic Fields the idea was that we would set it up for 16-bit games, and it was going to be a bit slicker, a bit more professional. Mr. Chip sounded dated and quite a.
Well, there was a little cartoon character of a chip, wasn't there, with legs?
Yeah.
Did you draw that one?
I didn't draw that. No.
So was it?
I remember it though. It was awful.
Yeah. So was the Magnetic Fields? Was that your baby? It was you. It was the two of you that set that company up.
Largely, I mean, the only significant games were our games really. I mean, I think there was the very first game was. Let me think. Did Wrangler go out as Magnetic Fields? I think Wrangler went out, which was an update of an 8-bit game, and I did the ST and Amiga versions. I can't remember who did the Commodore 64 version. But probably the first significant game was probably Supercars. Although there was Super Scramble as well, but Supercars was the first big hit for Magnetic Fields.
So Supercars was that before Lotus, the first Lotus game?
Yeah. So we Supercars, then Lotus, then we did Supercars 2, then Lotus 2, and then Lotus 3, and then there was Kid Chaos. We did revisit Supercars as well. We did almost like a Supercars 3 or Supercars 2.5, I suppose it was.
For the PC, that one.
Yeah.
Did you guys also do? I know, Shaun, you worked. Was it What was it called again? I've written it down here. Network QC Rally, QRAC Rally.
Yeah. That was both of us as well. Yeah.
I'm sure that had the windscreen wipers, eh?
That came after Kid Chaos, so that's when we moved on to the PC. Europress, they were very impressed with Lotus, and they wanted someone to do. They'd already done a rally game, and they wanted to do a new version of their rally game. And they came to speak to us because we did Lotus, and we agreed to do it. And they were really pleased to get the team that had done Lotus, and they had their own ideas about Network Q. I think they wanted to be quite simulation based, but we wanted to make it more accessible and fun.
I can always remember it was probably the first racing game where you were actually in the cockpit. It was pretty groundbreaking, if I remember rightly.
It had been done before, but we
did
try and, as always, we always looked at everything else that had gone before and tried to push it further in more interesting ways.
Mm-hmm. So, see, when you first started, I mean, you started with Supercars and obviously Lotus. Was it just the two of you guys? Was there anyone else involved, like in the game design, when you sat down to talk about it? How did the games evolve, and was it just really the two of you, or was there somebody else?
Yeah. I mean, even right through to the end, it was Shaun and I that we basically we somehow worked it through. You did more of the technical stuff, Shaun. I could always rely on Shaun to know. I would always have complete confidence he'd work something out technically. But that's how Lotus came about. I wanted to do a two-player car game because we were working on a shoot 'em up that never came to anything. I saw the graphics somewhere, and I spoke to Shaun about Lotus, and he said, "Oh, if I can do a really fast road routine, then we'll do it." And he went away for a weekend and came back with this really fast road routine.
I was actually helping Dave do something, wasn't I? And I wrote it while I was up all night with Dave, helping him do something. I can't remember. And I was just working on it next to him so I could help him. But what would that have been on? He was converting supercars, was he? Or
Super Scramble? No, actually Super Scramble was like a year or two before.
He'd be doing supercars on the ST, the conversion. That'd be it.
It probably, yeah.
And I'd be sort of So I just sat there trying to make things go a little bit faster, work out how I could get all the clipping for when things go behind the hills and how to cut the trees off and everything. And it just all came together, and because that was fast enough, I think that was the main reason, of course, as well as the graphics, that everyone liked it, really.
Yeah, and was that the reason when you came up with the road design, you realised we've got the basis for a really good driving game?
Basically,
it has to be fast and smooth, and if it wasn't 60 frames a second, I think you just lost the feeling that you're actually moving fast.
Yeah. I mean, I think as a consumer, when I first saw the first Lotus, my jaw hit the floor. I mean, the stuff that had kind of gone before, you had stuff like Outrun, which was just diabolical. It was an absolute god-awful game. What other stuff? Crazy Cars, but I don't know if you remember his Titus software. It looked beautiful graphics, and it was just horrible. And suddenly this Lotus game came along, and people thought they couldn't believe that a humble 16-bit machine was so had that ability. It was just incredible.
I think we were outrunning the arcades. We were sort of almost aiming for something like that, weren't we? Two-player one, but the conversion wasn't fast enough, and it just jerked all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever, I mean, am I right in thinking that Outrun was a sort of the inspiration for the original Lotus, or was it?
I think there's probably lots of car games. But I remembered Pit Stop 2 on the Commodore 64 I used to like. But there was a lot of... it was basically... there was lots of games like that, even going back to the Atari days, years before. The idea of driving a car along a road like that was a fairly established idea. We just wanted to do it really well and hopefully set the benchmark for the Amiga. And I think it probably was the best known car game of its type on the Amiga. It was a huge success. I think it was. I think each version that was released at the time was the biggest success that Gremlin had. So I think with each version, that was their biggest success at the time when each one went out.
Wow. Were you guys responsible for the other conversions? Like, I mean, it came out in the Commodore 64 as well, didn't it? I think, eh?
You did. We didn't do anything.
Yeah. No, I think we I probably told them all how my road routine worked, and they tried to do it. I think the colours moving towards you, the lines and everything, moved quite fast, but the road was like doing like this. I don't know what was going on. It was a good effort, because the Commodore 64 was hard work, but I don't know how it didn't work.
Spectrum version as well.
Is there really?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there was, yeah.
Insane. So who did the music? Because the music was a big part of the Lotus games.
You did.
This is where I can't remember who did the first one. Was it?
You did one of them. I think was it the first one.
I didn't do the music.
Was it Barry Leach?
Oh, Barry Leach. Ah, right.
Barry did the second one. I don't think I did the first one. I didn't do any of them.
And who was it? I worked with a musician quite closely on the third one because I had the idea for the intro. I wanted to make quite a cinematic intro, and I wanted the music to fit very closely with the intro. So I remember talking for ages with the musician about how it would work, and it needed to be timed so it fitted with the music, which is quite original at the time. It's obviously nothing special now, but at the time on the Amiga, no one was doing that type of thing. We even had there was little things that probably now no one would notice, but I even wanted the text to fade up out of the screen, and Shaun worked out a way of doing that. We had to have certain colours on lines. Do you remember that? I asked you to do I wanted the text fading up out of the screen.
Yeah, I think I remember that, yeah.
And we had to,
change all the colours.
Yeah, 4 colours on those lines where the text appeared. I had to make sure that there wasn't too many colours on the line, so there was replacement colours. I can't remember exactly how we did it, but now you'd look at it, you wouldn't even think that it was an effect. But back then, no one had text fading up on a coloured background.
I'm glad you're here. I don't remember anything of these things. Like
Shaun,
that.
you can't remember half the stuff you wrote.
No, I can't. It's terrible. I'm a bit older than Andrew, though.
The tricks we did on Kid Chaos to get all those colours on the screen. I think some of the screens had like well over 100 colours, 150 odd colours with all the rasters in the background and all the scrolling. That was incredible. Those screens were drawn in lots and lots of different sections on Kid Chaos. I'm jumping about between games here, but the screens were massively colourful, and there was never more than 3 colours on a line. And Shaun wrote a routine for me that would search through the picture looking for more than 3 colours, and it was painstaking work drawing the backdrops for Kid Chaos. It took forever, and I think there were lots of different versions, and I drew them in bits, and I had to make sure that even when there was there'd be like red flowers amongst yellow flowers, and I had to do little tricks to get the little red. It was you'd be amazed at the stuff we did to get the games to look like that.
Yeah.
Well, I was saying, like, I used to write everything machine code as well, and I couldn't even dream of how I did that now or why I did it, but it was just what you learned first and carried on doing it.
Could you guys program a new Lotus game right now, or have you forgotten a lot of the sort of tricks and tips, do you think?
Oh, I'm sure I've forgotten that.
The programming would probably be really simple compared to what you do now, Shaun.
Well, not really. I mean, it almost gets easier the bigger the jobs, because you don't have to actually do the whole job. You just have to do little bits of it. Whereas I think then you had to do everything. You had to all the interrupts, all the things you had to do. You had to know everything about the whole computer. I mean, now most of it's done for you.
And it had to be optimized. The memory was small as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's something that I sort of still do these days. I have to save all memory and everything on what I'm working on with, and make them run faster. But yeah, definitely a good start doing that.
Did you guys do the Atari ST version?
Nah, which
Atari ST version?
we did this.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
They
We did most of them, didn't we?
Yeah, but we didn't really care about them because they were always a bit crap, and the music was terrible, and the sound was terrible. But there was a market, so they were like a month at the end. We just spent converting it as best we could.
So how difficult?
Yeah, a lot of the code was pretty much the same.
So how
So I
difficult?
said a lot of the code is pretty much the same. Yeah.
Yeah. So was Atari ST version a sort of an inferior copy of the Amiga one?
Yeah, the graphics were downgraded. It was slower, jerkier. The sound was terrible. I mean, none of us were really interested in the ST, but it was about a third of the sales or a quarter of the sales, wasn't it? So we had to do it.
It was less, and it wasn't writing a whole new game. But yeah, I remember you had to go through and reduce all the colours and things like that. So. And of course, I mean, the Amiga could position the sprites wherever it liked. The Atari had to have them all pre-built. Just had to pick the right one. So it was harder work.
Yeah. Was the Amiga easier to program for then? Would you say?
Well, for the type of games that we wanted to do, I think we tailored them for what the Amiga could do, and then worked out how to do it afterwards. So we all the scrolling, the blitter, changing the colours, use a lot of the tricks that Amiga could do, made the games really.
Yeah. So at what point when you came up with you wanted to make a racing game, you obviously plumbed for Lotus. Did you guys have to get like an official license or something from Lotus? Or how hard was that to get?
No, we started the game well in advance of the license. I wanted to do the game for ages, and we were doing a shoot 'em up for about 2 months, but I did a lot of the graphics for it. And then we switched to the racing game after Shaun. Yeah, I've still got all the graphics. And we switched to the racing game when Shaun did the road routine, and then we did about over half the game, maybe 2/3 of the game, and it was a Porsche. There was loads of Porsches in it, and I even did all the front end screens and title screens and everything with Porsches. Of course, it wasn't called a Porsche; it was just a car that looked like a Porsche. And then we took it to Graham, and they loved it. And they said straight away, we've just done a deal with Lotus. Are you interested in me and you redrawing graphics, but are you interested in doing it as a Lotus game? And I mean, we were delighted. It was fantastic. At the time, having a license was a big deal to have that sort of credibility attached. So I remember being hugely excited. It took a lot of research as well. You couldn't just go on the internet then. So I was buying back copies of Autocar and going to the dealership in Liverpool to photograph cars and asking endless questions on the phone of what does this do, how big is that, and all questions. And
you're going to buy one of these, are you, sir?
So they didn't give you a Lotus to use for the next couple of months. No.
We did drive one though, didn't we?
We did get to drive them, yeah, around the test track in Norwich, wasn't it?
Yeah, the fact
I could barely see out of the.
And then Millbrook we went to for the second one.
What was that? Was that just part of when the game was getting released, or was that to actually get a feel for
that wasn't research. That was promotions.
Aye.
So
yeah,
I was there with the journalists.
Yeah, to get the press there, they get to drive around, and then they give you a good review, hopefully. But
ironically, I remember having ideas from the first one we did, thinking, we can use these ideas in the next one, because we'd never been out in the car, never had any real feel for it apart from sitting in one of the showrooms. So I think that probably filtered through to the later games.
Did they have much influence over the game? I mean, one of the things I think personally, the fact that you couldn't damage the car was always a wee bit disappointing? Was that their choice?
No, there's nothing. I don't think there's any restrictions. I think we just said we couldn't damage the car. I think we also said that with Rally because it was difficult to it was just no memory to do lots of versions of the car damaged.
Right.
It was difficult to make the car flip, so we just said, oh yeah, Lotus won't let us damage the cars. And I'm pretty sure we said that for the earlier Rally games as well. It was just there was a lot of work in damaging the car. I think we did it in the last Rally game, didn't we? We did deformed panels and scratches and things.
Yeah, I think I was up all night programming the deformed bits that fell off the day before we took it to be mastered. So
yeah, the bumpers would certain bits would come off, and the rest of it would just change shape, and then with the textures would change to look like they were damaged. So that's the only time we did damage. And I'd always wanted to do it, but it was always a huge amount of extra work. Never seemed that important, and in the early days there just wasn't the memory for it to have all the damaged versions of the car. You just couldn't do it.
Yeah. So it was more a technical thing rather than
really. Yeah. I think we just said I don't ever remember Lotus saying we couldn't crash the car.
Mm-hmm. The thing is, the game that came out was just like it raised the bar so much that it was still an incredible game. So obviously you brought out the 3 games. Personally, I wasn't a massive fan of the third one. I always preferred the kind of purist, the race, the sort of pure racing of the very, very first one. Although I think the first one you had the top screen for one player, and if you're playing as a single player, the bottom screen was just the sort of the kind of garage, wasn't it?
The pit stop screen, yeah.
Aye. The second one obviously was. I'm trying to remember. It's been a wee while since I played. It was the second one. Like Outrun was there different stages.
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah, the second one was based on the Outrun style of game with checkpoints. The first one was pit stops, and then the third one put them both together with all sorts of extra wacky things that we just threw everything at the third one.
Yeah, it became a bit of a kind of wipeout type game.
The course designer was the big thing. Rex, the ability that actually we were doing a conventional construction kit that they always used to call them, where you put together different curves, and I thought this is really, really boring. Are people really going to do this? And I had an idea for doing something with sliders, and I thought it would just be like an alternative to a way just to do a quick course. And then we put it together, and it worked really well. And we just thought, well, that'll be the course design. You'll just describe the course, and we just had that in the end. There was no construction kit as such. Right from the start, I thought it was a bloody boring idea. It was like sitting there for a whole evening doing the curve is so many degrees and there's a straight this long. I just thought that's really boring.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, it was only described with like how curvy, how hilly, how many straights. You could you had a code, like a 10-letter code. You'd send that to your friends. You could play on the same course.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that was a good feature.
I was always too lazy to design my own courses, I must admit, or just do a single loop right enough of it. So,
one of the problems with the third one was that because we added all this new stuff in, all these crazy hills and things, it just slowed down and it just lost that speed and everything. Couldn't keep it running as fast because there's so many different options and checks. Have we got like lasers flying across the course? Have we got to check for this? Is there a lorry there? All these things.
Mm-hmm. So what personally, what was your favourite, what out of the 3, sorry for harping on about Lotus, but I think these are the big games that people like to talk about. Out of the 3, what would you say was your favourite one that turned out the best?
2 for me, because a lot of people said, why did you change it? And I always thought we had to change it. We had to go and do something different and move it on. And I just love all the scenery and the different weather effects.
The weather, yeah.
And it just added a lot more to the gameplay. But the first one was very pure, as you say.
I'd say the second one as well, because there was some, for the Amiga, there's some groundbreaking stuff in there. That I had the idea for fog. I tried to imagine. It was hard. It was hard to think what fog might be and how fog would work. And I had an idea about having a grey background, and I drew a graphic that looked like it was coming out the background. And I thought I didn't know whether it would work, and then I got Shaun to put it in the game and animate it, and I thought, oh my god, that looks amazing. Mm-hmm. It looks like something coming out of fog. And then we did the same thing with nighttime and storms, and that was I thought that was a huge. It was ripped off endlessly afterwards, but that was a huge leap for the Amiga.
Yeah, I mean, I think literally within months, was it Jaguar XJ220?
Yeah,
They came right out, and they just obviously plagiarised.
I remember seeing the review of that, and the reviewer said, I think it was the one we did, Lotus 3. We put the radio back, and one of the Lotus 3 reviews said, "Oh, they've ripped off Jaguar. Jaguar had a radio," and I thought, no, we did that the first one, and we didn't have room to put it in the second one. We worked out a way to bring it back into the third one. It really annoyed me that the reviewer, the reviews were a bit of a joke back then anyway, but it was irritating because it ripped off so much of Lotus.
What was the second one? Was obviously your favourite one. What would you say was the most technically impressive? Might not have been the best game, but
I mean, again, the second one because it. Oh, you mean out of Lotus?
What you mean of the Lotus games?
Yeah, sorry, out of the 3 Lotus games. I mean, Shaun, you were mentioning the third one tried to push boundaries, maybe slightly too far. But...
Yeah, I think it went too far because I think we'd done everything we could really think of in the second one. But the second one, all the graphics, as Andrew says, the new effects, the sound effects of the thunder and lightning in the last course, and I remember how tense it was just trying to finish it, and with all the sound and everything going on as well. Just coming to the checkpoint and rolling over the line and getting your extra time and everything.
Yeah. How long did it take you to write one of these games from the start to finish, roughly?
About 9 months for the first one, wasn't it?
I think they all tended to take 6 months because I remember that people would want games out at Easter and they'd want games out in time for Christmas.
Yeah.
Which one, sorry?
It was 9 for the first, I remember. We spent quite a long time with it. I might even got it to 10, but that was partly because of having to draw all the graphics for the Lotus, and it was 6 months.
Right, okay.
The second and third one was 6 months.
Yeah, because then I remember the games coming out in October and at Easter. Because just the time of year and everything. If I was going away on holiday, it'd have to be October, just after we finished the game. And they'd want something out in time for Easter as well, so maybe March and October.
Yeah, and were you able to, obviously, a lot of the stuff you'd done in the first one, were you able to utilise these assets for the second and third games?
Oh, certainly the code, yeah.
The routines and that kind of stuff, yeah.
So, some of it, yeah. I mean, the second game had a different car, but we reused the graphics for the Lotus, and there was other bits and pieces. Actually, all the graphics I did for the Porsche, not all of them got wasted. We ended up using them in another game. But a lot of the I was doing characters and all sorts of things, and a lot of that appeared in supercars. So I just rejigged them a little bit. So because I'd spent months doing all these graphics for a Porsche style game, so all of that was reused.
Obviously, magnetic fields. Apart from Kid Chaos, I think they were all driving games, weren't they? They were all racing games, were they?
Yeah,
pretty much so. But yeah, that was obviously was that a conscious decision, or was it just because you both enjoyed that type of game?
Well, I think
it was probably good. We had successes, didn't we? With the supercars was a success, and Lotus was, so we just did sequels after that. I think Kid Chaos wanted to get away from it, having a bit of a break from that type of game, and we wanted to do a really good Sonic style game for the Amiga. We thought we could do something more interesting than anyone else, so that was trying to have a bit of a break away from car games.
How did Kid Chaos actually do, sort of commercially?
It took too long.
It did take a bit long.
The Amiga was essentially dead. I remember when we were releasing it, thinking, "Oh, it's pretty much over now."
Really?
The Amiga, and that was it. And we never got more than a very small forward. I remember it was being pirated the second day. Someone I knew who was into pirating games, and then someone sent me a copy of it, and I thought, well, that's it. No one's going to buy it.
Really?
So we.
I don't think the Amiga had finished when we.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't think the Amiga had finished when we started doing it. It disappeared quite quickly with the advent of the PCs and everything. And new consoles.
It took 2 years to do Kid Chaos from start to finish because it was a huge game, and that was a mistake. It was on 4 discs. Kid Chaos. It was massive.
Aye, and I think the Amiga just became absolutely enveloped with platform games. And I'll be honest, I didn't when I was looking through the games that you guys had written. I hadn't actually heard of that one. I was a massive Amiga fan, but it just kind of go.
There's a playthrough on YouTube. Someone's kindly played through the whole game. You can see everything.
It takes 4 hours, isn't it? So I think it takes 4 hours for someone to play through.
Yeah,
it's quite long, yeah. And they miss out there's loads of hidden bits that I remember I spent ages putting these hidden bits in and all sorts of special sections, and it doesn't have any of those in. I doubt I could even remember where they are now.
So who actually did the playtesting? Did you kind of farm it out to pals and family, or like bug testing?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I remember that we made a real big mistake with the playtesting on the Amiga version of Super Scramble. That's what Dave did, and he just got really good at it. And because he was the programmer, he kept setting the difficulty. I remember having really fierce arguments with him, screaming at him that you can't put the game out like this. It's ridiculously hard. And I went out, and no one could play it. There's a few videos on YouTube of people just said, "What the hell were they thinking? This is impossible." But Dave just got better and better and better at it, and it was just ridiculously frustrating and hard and no fun whatsoever. The Commodore 64 version that Shaun and I did together, that was a good little game. That it was meant to be an upgrade of Kikstart. When I worked on Kikstart 2 with Shaun, I had loads of ideas that I thought there's no way I can use this on Kikstart 2. There was the top view idea was taken from a game called Super Locomotive in the arcades. I wanted to try and do that with a motorbike to try and create 2 dimensions. So you had a top view with a side view, and I didn't think that there's no way that would work on Kikstart. But I want to do something that bigger graphics and more simulating. So Shaun and I did that, and the 64 version was quite good, but the Amiga version was just a disaster. It looked nice, but it was just the playability was awful.
Did you work on Kikstart 1, Andrew? No, was this yourself?
No, that was all Shaun.
I think you can tell the difference where the graphics start getting decent. That's Kikstart 2. Kikstart 1, they're all drawn with everything was brown, if I remember right.
It was the Commodore 64 you were working on after all. So.
And I got a little stick man who looked like the guy from Impossible Mission.
Obviously, you must have been
his legs when he walked.
You must have been a fan of the Kikstart program on TV, BBC 2, I think was it, with Peter Purvis.
Yeah, I think I ripped the music off it and the ideas, and
they could still come after you now.
And the name's a bit similar as well. Took the C out of the name, so.
Fantastic.
But I mean, the music, someone asked me about it, and apparently it's called Be My Boogie Woogie Baby. It's from 1967. I didn't even know that. But obviously I just ripped that off completely, so I'm sure the BBC paid people for it, but we didn't.
I thought it was called...
Do whatever you like.
I thought it was called Kikstart, but anyway, what do I know? So, going back to kind of Outrun for a second, do you think, I mean, obviously it was a travesty, the version that was released on the home systems. Do you think you guys could have done a really good version of Outrun? I think you could have.
We're using a Lotus engine.
Definitely better than the one that we did start working on something. Do you remember we did an idea for a different style of racing game on the Amiga, and we would oversee it with another team, and they just couldn't handle it, and that worked with bigger graphics. It was a different style of game, less arcadey, and a little bit more like the Space Harrier Outrun type thing. Do you remember that, Shaun?
No.
Okay. Yeah. It was
I didn't actually work in. I didn't actually work in Undone as much as Andrew was. I mean, I was there a lot of the time, but I'd work at home a lot of the time and go up there sometimes. I mean, when we were doing Kid Chaos, I was up there a lot, but a lot of the time I'd be working, 70 mile away, and just how did we used to send things? We didn't email, did we? I must have been sending discs.
Yeah, posting discs. Yeah.
I was going to ask that. That was my next question. Did you didn't physically work side by side? You worked for home, Shaun, and.
Well, for Kid Chaos, I was working up there most of the time, because for one thing, we only had one big fast Amiga 4000, and I'd work on it and at nights or whatever, and Andrew work in the day or something, because we needed that fast for him to do all the graphics with all the limitations we were talking about earlier, and design all the course designer had to have a lot more memory, and normal Amiga wouldn't do it.
So what software did you use, Andrew, for your graphics?
D-Paint. Yeah.
Dogs Paint.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone used D-Paint on the Amiga, didn't they?
Nice.
I mean, you actually drew all the cars in Lotus by eye, didn't you? You didn't have any 3D art package.
No. I think Shaun wrote some little routines that did like animations, and when we used lots of colours, there was so a few little custom routines where I would save out the D-Paint graphics and then run them through to see what the animation. So I'd have to keep drawing them and then saving them, and then this little program would animate what I'd drawn. Then I'd have to go back into D-Paint and fix the problems and save it again. So it was actually, thinking about it now, it was just astonishing that we worked like that. But yeah, it was a different world.
Nah, completely. So how did you sit down when you're designing a new game? Would you sit at a table and say, this is what we want to incorporate, and did you just go off and do your own thing? And did you tell Andrew how much memory you had, Shaun, or how did it kind of work?
Well, there's never any point of telling artists about memory. I don't know. I think I'll go and write a road routine, and we want like skimming over there and looking like this, and I'll see how many trees we can fit on and how many we can get on at once, and then Andrew go off and do his thing and design all the screens. What came next? I remember all the screens were always.
I think we just worked well together, that we automatically did the things that we were meant to do, that we were good at, and it just clicked. Because there's only two of us, so with a big team, you've got to have more of a plan and more direction. But there was just the two of us, and we liked doing our own thing, and we were good. We knew what we were both good at, and it just seemed to work.
Yeah, we didn't really have to project manager or anything like that. It was just got it done.
Brilliant. So, obviously you did Lotus 3 and then you did Kid Chaos. Was there ever any plans for a fourth Lotus at all?
I don't think so. I mean, we're still asked, still get people messaging me all the time saying, can there be a Turbo Challenge 4? Maybe we'd do it with a different car or something. I mean, there's always scope. There's always interest. We get asked to do a Supercars 3, a Supercars 4.
You realise these people still want that on the Amiga? Yeah. They want it on the Amiga, not on a new machine or anything.
I don't know what people would want, whether they'd want like a newish version, or whether they still want it on the Amiga, or probably if you ask different people, they'll say different things. But I think you'd have to keep it in the spirit of the original, because it's been so long since there was to do like a Turbo Challenge 4, I suppose you'd call it now. Maybe you would do it with a Porsche now, yeah, I don't know. There's been a big gap, so we've been asked about doing a Supercars sequel, which we've sort of considered, but there could be a Turbo Challenge sequel. Yeah, anything's possible.
I mean, talking purely as a gamer and a consumer and a big fan of these games, I mean, it would 100% need to be the Amiga. I mean, there's a game that I've got in the PlayStation 4, Horizon something or another, and it's kind of like it's like Lotus for the PlayStation 4, but it's, to me, you've got to be playing it on the original hardware. Playing a Lotus 4 on a PC, this wouldn't really be Lotus. It would have to be on an Amiga with a disc, and I would absolutely guarantee it would sell by the bucket load. I mean, it would be a massive amount of interest, guaranteed.
Maybe we should do a Kickstarter or something.
That's yeah.
There's a new thing coming out now where you can stream some Amiga games online. So you're actually controlling them. I think they're playing them on a computer, on an Amiga emulator, and feeding you the graphics back. I can't actually believe it's fast enough to work, but apparently it works really well. And lots of Supercars games are on there. Not the Lotus ones, because they're licensed. I suppose they didn't want to have to pay Lotus anything.
Yeah. See, obviously Lotus gave the license for the Lotus games. would that not run out after a certain length of time or something? I don't know. How does that work?
It did. It was a 10-year license for the original games.
So technically, whoever owns the IP could not sell these games now because they don't have the license. Is that?
Well, we own the IP,
right.
but we don't own the Lotus. We don't own Lotus's. We'd have to take out the Lotus logo and any reference to Lotus. It would just be Turbo Challenge without Lotus. Maybe we could apply a different brand to
Ford Fiesta Challenge or something, maybe, or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Turbo Challenge is sort of the brand, so. Maybe we would have Porsche Turbo Challenge or just some other Turbo Challenge, or I don't know, Turbo Challenge 4. I don't know what exactly we would do with it, or we could speak to Lotus about maybe. Obviously, their license, the licensing is very different now. They're licensing their games on the Xbox and the PlayStation, and it's a completely different and much bigger business now. So I don't know how they would view some sort of retro license. I'm not sure what they would think.
Yeah. So, as you say, you would consider doing a fourth one if there was enough interest?
Yeah, definitely possible. Yeah.
I'm sure that'll be a question you'll get asked in a couple of months' time, guys. So just be warned.
It's probably more likely for supercars. We seem to get asked more about supercars, but Turbo Challenge could happen. Supercars could happen. Anything's possible if people want it, and it always comes down to the money, unfortunately. But yeah, it's possible.
Yeah. Obviously, supercars. I mean, it's a completely different game from Lotus. I'm assuming from a technical point of view, it's a far, I shouldn't be saying this, but far simpler than a Lotus game. You brought out, I think, was it the first Lotus? No, Supercars came out, then the first Lotus came out, then did the second Lotus come out, then Supercars 2 came out?
It was Supercars 2 after Lotus, and then we did Lotus 2, and then Lotus 3, because, I don't know why we didn't do another Supercars. I think we just fancied doing something different, and then we went on to Kid Chaos. I don't know why we didn't do another Supercars, because they were both very successful.
Mm-hmm. What was...
Using the same features of the Amiga was good at, being scrolling screens. Did they have side-by-side on the original Supercars? Or was it...
No, it was one player, I think, the original Supercars, and then we did two-player on the second one. Yeah. There's also ways that could work now. Over the internet. I mean, supercars could be fantastic these days, and you could I mean, if you're doing it now, supercars would be in 3D, and you have the camera moving around and changing angle slightly, so it would still be the way I would do it now would be still sort of a top view game, but you'd have it in 3D definitely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what was the last game you guys actually worked together on then?
Mobile One Rally. So that was around 2000-ish. That's when we.
Was it Mobile One, or is it called Rally Championship?
Mobile One Rally Championship was the full name, I think. Yeah, Mobile One Rally Championship. So that was the third of the rally games that we did.
Yeah.
And what? Am I right in thinking the Magnetic Fields doesn't really exist there? Or is it still a company name that you guys would return to at some point, you think? Or?
I suppose it's sort of our company still. If we were going to do something, we might do it via Magnetic Fields. We own the intellectual property to everything, so I suppose we could bring it back.
Mm-hmm. Who did the intro for Magnetic Fields? It was like a dum 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 dum.
Yeah,
dum, dum.
I did the design the logo and the concept of the intro, and it was actually Michelangelo, who I mentioned earlier, who found the sample. It was from Wagner from the Ring Cycle opera. Just a little bit. I think it was the Death March. I think it was.
I thought I recognised it. Yeah. So do you guys, sorry Andy, what is it you do now? Are you still involved in gaming, programming at all, graphics?
No, when I still worked in computers, I think in 92, 93, I bought an investment property, and now I'm a full-time landlord. So I've got a company that lets properties all over North Wales and Manchester.
So you've got plenty of time for playing video games now then?
Unfortunately not. No, my spare time. I really like cars. I've always like cars. So when I left computers, I was a lot more successful as a landlord. And as a landlord, I've had Lamborghinis, Porsches, Ferraris, all sorts of things which I could never afford when I did computer games. So being a landlord is better paid.
But easier as well.
I'm still a programmer, and I've got a battered Vauxhall Astra, but I think the battered bit's because I keep sort of driving off the road and everything with it. So,
do you think if you ever were, you know, forgetting what you're doing at the moment, if you were to ever return to gaming, would you want to work in the current environment where it's like 1,000 different people and you get your little bit of coding to do, or did you like, because it's obviously it's changed days from the sort of golden bedroom coding type thing, eh?
well, I've worked in teams of up to like 50 people and things. I worked at Warthog for a bit, and they did Looney Tunes games like that for, and then I've worked on small consoles, the Nintendo DS, where there's 4 or 5 of us. We had our own company with about 5 of us called Team 3 Games for a little while, and that's merged into other companies with more people, and currently I'm working on a handheld game, a golf game, and there's about 30, 40 people in the company. We've only about 10 in the dev team, most of them doing selling, advertising, and QA, and customer support and everything, so it's a small enough team of people writing the actual code.
Fantastic. Well, listen, guys, that's me kind of out of questions. We did say we'd stick to an hour, and it's almost come up for an hour. Very, very last question to you, Andrew. Commodore 64 or Spectrum?
Oh, Commodore 64.
Well, you hesitated slightly, and Shaun?
Oh, definitely Commodore 64. Never had a Spectrum. So.
Excellent, fantastic. Well, listen, guys, thank you very, very much for taking time to join me tonight. I know you guys are going to be going down to Blackpool in October the 13th, I think it is. I'll be going down as well, so hopefully we can tie up on the Saturday beforehand anyway. I look forward to it.
Okay.
So, okay, guys, thanks again. Take care. See you.
Oh,
Thank you.
Cheers,
Thanks.
guys. Bye.
okay.